I'm Balab, and welcome to the Dream Lab. I have no clue what to write for this intro, so here's the premise. I put some names of different aesthetics into a bag of wonders. And I picked 3 at random one at a time, and then made an OC to encapsulate the aesthetic I got. Yep. I also excluded aesthetics that I associated too much with fashion, because I thought that would be too easy. I just thought it would be fun. You don't need to know anything else. So let's just jump into our actually kind of impractical bag of wonders. This one. Oh. Yes. Oh boy. This will be a fun one. I used Pinterest to find example images of all of the aesthetics that I was representing for this video, but for Solarpunk specifically, Pinterest really liked just giving me AI sludge. Annoying. At least it's obvious though. Like, look at this. That's not how buildings work. That's like, huh? Window? Huh? Window? They'd really be so lazy that they can't even bother to check if windows look correct or symmetrical. I ended up going to Car instead for this first one, which at least meant I could credit some artists for their work. So if you don't know, Solarpunk is a subcategory of steampunk, from what I can tell. It seems to be the lawful good of steampunk types, if you will. Also, I fixed this chart because it was bugging me. You're welcome. Solarpunk combines the classic steampunk thing of using technology to make cities float and stuff, but also combines it with a very modern ideal of renewable energy and being eco-friendly and sustainable. Cool. So going into the design, I wanted the character to seem like they live somewhere that floats, because that's such a staple with steampunk types. And Solarpunk specifically also has this mix of stuff looking clean, but also well-loved in a sense. Solarpunk imagines this society where everyone grows their own food, makes their own clothes, and uses items for as long as they are usable. And I also think I want to give the character a mechanical companion, a cute little guy, perhaps. So let's actually draw this thing. I always sketch on paper, because I just can't. I cannot sketch digitally. I don't know why. My brain does not compute. I find that when I make any character design, even for stuff really casual like this, I can't help myself from trying to make a story prompt for them. Now that I say that out loud, no duh. Anyway, so this is Adriel. He's a young guy who made it a habit to transport extra resources he grows from home and delivers them to people for free who need it. Why does he have extra food lying around? Well, his parents disappeared, and he and his younger sister, that I did not draw, are saddled with extra food and material that are gonna go to waste, so why not give it back to the community? While he's out and about, he also uses the opportunity to investigate several locations to see if there's any evidence to figure out the mystery of his missing parents. Is there some sort of conspiracy? Is this utopian Solarpunk world in danger? I don't know. I really wanted his outfit to look practical for the type of work he does, but have that little bit of edge that looks more futuristic. And that's why I ended up going for this off-the-shoulder plus sleeveless turtleneck combo. Looks slick, but also the coat looks like it could be zipped up when the weather is rainy or something. I also gave him little hover boots and an iPad to keep track of orders. I like to think these are older pieces of equipment that his father had that he's repurposing for these delivery runs. And then when it came to color, I assigned earthy tones for most of his main outfit and then used these brighter oranges and warm grays for the tech. When I was drawing initial sketches for Adriel's design, I kept getting hit with this feeling that something was missing. But what ended up getting me out of that was just posing him properly and giving him some props, which in the final drawing ends up being this big ol' basket of produce. What? Produce, and all of his gadgets, which I think tied everything together. I feel like props are pretty underrated in terms of character drawings like this. they're really useful for putting a character in context. As for the little drone, I leaned to making him more cat-like. I imagine he was a little guy that Adriel bought right after his parents disappeared to keep him company. He also ended up looking like a dragonfly too, with those wings. But yeah, look at him go. He's got little extending limbs and is ready to give out free flowers as a bonus. I had a lot of fun rendering this guy. I usually don't have the chance to render little details like all of the produce. And oh my gosh, especially Adriel's hair. I'm so glad I made the spur of the moment decision to give his hair that like brown to like matcha green gradient. It looks so good, I think. So yeah, here's the final drawing. I'm pretty pleased with how cohesive this one turned out. I feel like all the elements tied themselves together in a pretty cool way. Maybe looking at it now, I'd tweak the color of the boots or something. But I don't know, maybe that's a nitpick. Next up.
Next. Oh. Alright. Ooh. Okay. Acid Pixie. This will be a little chaotic one.
Many would call Acid Pixie an eyesore, but I call it fun. I initially tried to look up what Acid Pixie is even about, but the only page I initially found was on Fandom. But Fandom is dookie. I ended up skimming the page and taking some guesses and liberties. Basically, there's bright colors, a vaguely nostalgic /indie/goth influence, and from what I understand, the bright colors are supposedly there to mask an inner darkness. If I'm real, reading that just reminded me of those Mary Sue OCs. The ones where they're super colorful and they're half demon and everyone likes them inexplicably and they have like 4 love interests. Yeah. I was a bit too amused by this observation, so I went, screw it, I'm making a character based on one of those OCs. I asked myself what a writer would do if they wanted to intentionally use this Mary Sue trope in a way that's self-aware. So, what if a Mary Sue, like this, was transported into a normal high school where, like, nothing cool happens, and the other kids just kind of get used to her after a couple of weeks, and her main character, Clout, is denied? I leaned into making her more quirky, cheery, and feminine instead of edgy. I figured that would work with the rainbow aesthetic better. I initially thought she was going to have rainbow hair. That didn't stick. And I also added a bunch of staples I feel like you see with OCs like this. Flower crowns, big earrings, thigh-high socks with rips. These also are coincidentally fashion choices that I saw a lot with people dressing like the Acid Pixie aesthetic. So hey, I might be onto something. I also noticed that the Acid Pixie both has rainbows that are super saturated, rainbows that are more pastel, and sometimes there's a good amount of black or darker colors in the image to balance things out. For the sake of the character design, I knew going in that I don't use a ton of bright colors frequently in my other art, so I might want to go a little more pastel with the colors and utilize a lot of black to balance things out. Okay, so I'm gonna yap about a hypothetical story. So this is Crystal, spelled with 2 L's, Prism Heart. I got the name from a generator. It seemed appropriate. She's an orphan princess cursed to be half demon, who finds herself in a normal high school. I think she's from a world where everyone just looks like this, and people tended to feed into her main character syndrome, TM, and now she's stuck in a setting that has no thrills to speak of. I think people are initially freaked out by her at first, but over time they just start treating her like any other outwardly weird kid. She does try to initiate that classic high school drama story though. Like, she tries to fall in love, but only realizing that romance is not actually what she wants, but rather just the general companionship. She tries to initiate the power of friendship, but she has like 2 friends who don't really react much to her shenanigans. She tries to initiate cool rivalries with other students, but the jocks and cheerleaders are actually really nice to her. It made sense to me that maybe at some point she would feel the need to try to look and act more normal. I even had extra time while I was watching MasterChef to draw her deyassified version. Look at it. It's so sad. but learns to express herself anyway, because it's not really her outfit or her upbeat nature that's really the problem. It's just more her need to have this main character moment all the time. It sort of reminded me about how, when I was younger, a lot of people would badmouth characters for just having really colorful designs or just having a lot of cool powers, which those qualities are kind of superficial and aren't inherently what makes it Mary Sue and Mary Sue. And Mary Sue is mainly bad because the whole world revolves around them, and it makes the story kind of boring. And even then, Mary Sue OCs of this type are really just made by young people who are creating characters for the first time. And who am I to ruin their fun? It just seems so silly to me now that people got so bent out of shape over, like, Sonic recolors or something. Especially in the age where fandoms can do actually morally reprehensible things, like dox people because someone doesn't like a ship you like, or something. So I decided to go a little more empathetic in my approach to the character. Like, Crystal here, she doesn't mean to harm anyone or be a bother. She just needs to realize that she's not in a dramatic story, but in a more down-to-earth slice-of-life one. Alright, well, here she is. Not gonna lie, I think I kind of popped off with this little heart detail where half is a cowlick and the other half is a horn. I came up with that in my early sketches, and it stuck immediately because it's so fun. I think I got time for one more.
Last one. Focus, focus. Vaporwave. Ooh, okay.
Okay, so silly me thought that Vaporwave actually came from the 80s and 90s, but it's actually something from the early 2010s that's just inspired by those decades. I read that the aesthetic in music kinda is supposed to be satirical and make fun of capitalism, especially the parts that are obsessed with technology. There's also this strange, nostalgic isolation that a lot of the music and art conveys. It got me thinking about an OC stuck in an AI simulation, kinda like Metaverse, but somehow worse. I like to think that she's rebelling against the simulation and trying to get other people to do the same in the name of humans living their own lives and not ones completely dictated by this company's AI world. I think it would be fun if she swayed people by using humor and sarcasm to just point out how soulless and stupid everything is. And so, with that idea in mind, I began sketching what turned out to be the hardest character to figure out of the three. I was trying to balance something that looked kind of futuristic with some elements of 90s grunge to try to make the character look rebellious, and every time I felt that it needed some extra thing to make the design pop. I then realized I was making the character too much like a traditional rebel and forgot about the sarcasm, witty part. Oops. I also realized that maybe it's the posing of the character that is gonna bring out the vibe I'm going for. So I ended up with this pose, depicting this kind of cinematic moment where this gal, who I've named Hoshika-Ruma, by the way, having a moment alone, away from her allies, and the people she's trying to convince, where her witty persona slips for a second, and you just see how lonely this world is, and how it's affecting her. That's all I have for a hypothetical story, so I'll talk about some decisions I made for the drawing. One thing I knew I wanted to include was a makeshift piece of clothing made from something that isn't clothes, but a dumb AI world might mistake as something being worn on the body, like clothes. In this universe, clothing options are likely restricted to ones generated by the program, so I imagine if you want to express yourself in any other unique way, you have to get a little creative. So that's what this little thing tied around Ruma's waist is. It's not a hoodie, it's actually a towel? A bath towel. And you should know, I actually, in the middle of the night, went into my bathroom and wrapped a towel around myself to see if it actually looks sort of like I was thinking in my head. And it actually works out. I think it's a funny way to rebel against this hypothetical AI program. I also knew for the design I absolutely had to reference that, like, bright grid thing you see in a lot of Vaporwave art. It was originally going to be pink, but I realized that I didn't actually want any pink in the design. I thought it was too many colors, so I changed it to orange for cohesion's sake. Pink ended up being reused as a part of the lighting for this scene. I don't know, imagine there's a neon sign or something casting this pink light onto Ruma here. I also thought the half-circle glasses would be a fun touch, as a part of this persona that Ruma hypothetically has when she's not being depressed like in this drawing. Everything else was kind of decided in the sketch phase, except the bag. Look at it. Spooky. That's the end of the speed paint, by the way. Ruma's hair ended up looking like the night sky, which is pretty cool. I'm not cool enough to have done that intentionally, so it's a happy accident. Here's all the OCs one more time. Honestly, it was really nice to come up with new stories and OCs, since I mainly fiddle around with the same cast of OCs over and over again. So yeah, if you have any funny little headcanons about any of these guys, I'd love to hear them. And also, I think my next video might be a sketchbook tour of some kind, so let me know if that'd be interesting for y'all. Subscribe if you want, and I hope you have good dreams and sleep well. You probably need it. Bye bye!